Welcome to the Success Journey Show. Let's travel together through the lives of individuals on the road to success.
Hey, what's going on, travelers? Listen, life is a journey, and it's good to have people on your journey to success who are willing to grow, who are willing to share some directions with you, some pointers, and that's what we're doing here on the Success Journey Show. This is Ricky Venters, and I'm here with none other than Marlon Madden. Marlon, what's good, bro? How you doing?
Boy, I'm excited for today because I'm gonna learn a lot today from this guest that we have on, and to hear him talk all about engineering and all these different stuff. So I've been anticipating and just excited about today.
Yeah, you know that's already in my wheelhouse. So when I saw the guest and I was reading through his bio, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, we're gonna have some fun today, man. Talking my lingo, you know. It's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to highlight a fellow engineer. So yeah, we're gonna have a great time. But before we do that, we wanted to just remind you guys that, hey, we've been having a great time with some of our listeners. They have been reaching out to us, talking to us about, hey, you know, we're really enjoying what you're doing on the show. So we ask you, leave a review, you know, subscribe, share it with your friend that may be going through something, or just keep it in the back of your mind, right? For that day when someone says something to you about their journey, you can say, hey, you know what? You need to listen to the Success Journey Show. They have an episode about someone that can share something that can add value to their lives. So we're going to get on with it. Marlon, why don't you do the introduction today?
Hey, I had a pleasure of meeting this brother here, Dr. Palmer, down in Florida. And ever since I've done that, it's a person that when you sit down and you talk to him, you're going to learn something. You're going to learn something, and you better take out your pen and paper. And he does it in a fun way. That's what I really like. So today, I want to introduce to you Dr. Palmer.
What's happening, fellas?
Hey, we're relaxing, man. Yeah. Hey, thank you for, I know you have a busy schedule, but thank you for taking out some time to share your journey with us, brother. Why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I am currently a professor of electrical engineering, and that sort of means a couple things. Some professors only teach, but I also do research. I think for the state, I do 60% of my time is supposed to be research, 30% is in the classroom. The other 10% is kind of service, where I am working on committees and reading other people's papers and things like that. So I teach electrical engineering. I teach robotics classes, and my research focus is on biologically inspired robots, primarily focused on legged systems. So systems that have legs that can walk around, run, jump, climb, and even swim. I'm actually working on a proposal now, trying to see if I can find someone to give me some money to build a walking system that I can kind of wrap in a dry suit that can also swim and dive. Wow. Some research endeavors as well. So let's see. I started with an electrical engineering degree undergrad, and then I went to Ohio State and got a master's and a PhD. And at the time that I was finishing college, actually, I wanted to do robotics, and I wanted to do robots that kind of looked like people and animals. And the only work you could get doing robotics was pretty much at the automobile manufacturers and industrial stuff. And I didn't want to do that. So in order to do what I wanted to do, I had to go to graduate school. I had to basically start my own research laboratory at a university, which required me to get a PhD. So that is the primary driver for me to get my PhD. I ended up falling in love with teaching while I was a graduate student. So, you know, both ends of the faculty job, the research and the teaching, are kind of a match made in heaven for me and what I'm interested in.
Love it. So
I told you, Ricky, when you sit down with Dr. Palmer, man, you better bust out a paper and pen, because he has a nice jump shot, but he could also talk that lingo.
I bet. So you're pretty much, so to break it down to some of the listeners, to something that they can see or relate to, are you pretty much talking about stuff like iRobot, like that movie iRobot with Will Smith with that?
Well, that's exactly what I'm talking about. And actually, it was for me. It was I'm old. I was Terminator.
There we go.
Terminator came out when I was young, and I wanted to build a Terminator. And the movie is actually a good example of research. People hear research and they think it's boring. They think you're in the library. They think you're writing papers all day. But really, you think about building, what does it take to build a Terminator? And then Terminator 2 came out and Terminator 3, and the actual robot itself kept getting more complicated and more capable. And that's what research really is. Research is you're working on this open-ended problem. And this is a problem that I can literally work on my entire life. There's never a point at the end of a day where I could put my pencil down and say I'm done, because we can always improve. And we're not even close. I mean, I know there's some video out there, some really capable legged robots, but we're not even close to what Terminator can do. So it's an exciting time. In fact, so the research community kind of sold the world on this idea that we were close. Like 20 years ago, we were close, and it's just, we just need more battery power, we need stronger motors. And 20 years later, we're just now realizing how difficult of a problem that really is. We see squirrels running and jumping all the time, and it looks easy. Yeah. But we're sort of learning now that trying to mimic that behavior with wires and motors and circuits is really very difficult. And if you kind of trace back through the history of legged robots, the first thing we did was we said, well, let's build a robot that looks like an animal. So we had legs, and the legs had knees and ankles and a thigh. And we realized that actually controlling these systems is very difficult. So now we've had to go back and actually figure out what is the neural structure of these animals that's allowing them to control this many degrees of freedom. And that's sort of been the tough part now, is you have, you have a robot that has 30 or 40 joints, 30 or 40 motors, and it's got that many sensors, even more sensors. How do animals and humans negotiate that much information quickly, so that if you're running and you stumble, you're able to recover from that stumble without some type of catastrophic failure? That's really been the hard part. We can make systems that look like animals, but getting them to move rapidly and respond quickly to sort of, loose gravel or running on snow and ice, that's been the challenging part.
So I have a few questions. So what I remember when I was in my master's program, I did a biomechanical class, and I loved it, right? And it's talking about, designing prosthetics, things of that nature. So that's as deep as I went with it, right? But even in that, right, I appreciate guys that studies further in this path and this engineering and things of that nature. What kind of, for those listeners that have, to give them a little bit more in-depth knowledge of it, what kind of learning do you have to do? Because it's not just about engineering. You're talking about joints and all that kind of stuff. You got to study, the biology, anatomy, physiology. Anatomy. You got to study all those things, like, in order to be able to engineer something that mimics those things. So talk about the crossing of those studies and what that does to you in expanding your research.
Well, first, let me say that robotics itself is multidisciplinary. I mean, you have material science, you have mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, computer science, computer engineering. So a lot of students come to me and say, well, what's the best field to get into for robotics? And I say any one of those can get you in. And what happens kind of sort of in the workplace is we just kind of just throw 4 or 5 engineers together and ask them to solve a problem. So you don't, there's not particularly one field over the other. The other interesting thing about what I do is that when I was in high school, I hated biology. I did not like it at all. And I later learned that, we teach biology at that level as a memorization skill, right? You memorize these bones, memorize these muscles, I'm not one for memorization, but I always did well in physics and chemistry because it was principles, it was concepts, it was mathematical equations.
Yes.
And now that I'm on this side of it, I spend half of my time reading about biology research. And I work with biologists, and we kind of tag team on, what we need to make these things work. And now I'm learning biology from more of a principled approach rather than memorizing certain muscles, right? And it's sort of unfortunate that we teach biology that way, because I think we're losing a lot of students that could be, even doctors and biologists, because they just don't memorize well. But that's not really what biologists do. Biologists still are interested in processes and understanding how things work.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I, like I said, I spend half my time reading biology stuff, and I love it. I can't get enough. And so we look at the most researched. I'm going to ask you guys a question. The most researched legged animals are dogs and horses. Do you know why?
No clue. I thought it was monkeys and rats.
No, dogs and horses, because of the money. Because of money. Horse racing and dog racing is big business. So how those animals run, like I didn't know until I was in graduate school that, similar to how humans have a right hand and a left hand, horses they can be right-footed or left-footed.
What?
And so they have a dominant foot.
Man, dropping knowledge.
And it's that type of thing that is beneficial for the horse racing industry. But then that also helps us understand, okay, how do horses run? Why is this horse running different than this one? And then when I want to build a system that can run, right, is handedness, right, with like right-handedness, is that something useful for a legged robot?
Yeah, I'm telling you. So, I'm torn, Dr. Palmer. I'm torn. You know why? I'm in the military, man, and I feel like you're gonna accomplish your job and make a robot that get rid of my job, man. they're gonna be fighting.
Hey, we can't talk about that. See, when I talk about my legged robots, I have to say stuff like planetary exploration. I have to say military reconnaissance. I can't actually say. See, everyone's afraid of it, right? No one wants to talk about a robot actually carrying a weapon and shooting someone. Yeah. Because that opens a door to conversation that people don't want to have.
I will tell you, Dr. Palmer, not to go into too much, something classified. We're even talking about autonomous vehicles and all those stuff in the military, just having vehicles that could drive themselves and all that stuff. So I understand totally where you're going with it. And I love it. Now, how hard was it? Oh, you say you were good at math, right? So that means, did you find any challenge? Because we had a previous engineer on here, Dr. Nehemiah, and he built bridges and stuff like that. And he said he thought he was good in math until he got to the level that everybody was good in math, and he had to buckle down and understand that he didn't really know math as good as he did. How challenging was it for you when you're going to your different studies to understand math?
Well, the secret of math, and my little backstory on me, my mother and father actually pushed all of me and my brother and sister into math and science. They felt as though if we ran into I'm African American, I'm Black. If we ran into a racist teacher, then they couldn't penalize us if we had the right answer in math and science. So if you breaking down a sentence, right, like in English, there's all kinds of personal preferences subjective, and words you could have used and words you very subjective. So my parents pushed all of us into math and science. That was the first grade they looked at on all of our report cards was how'd you do in math and science, right? So and that was true. It was very objective all the way through college. Once you get into graduate school, the dirty secret about math is that it becomes very subjective, because the types of problems that I solve, right? So the goal is to solve a problem that no one has solved before, right? But now people start looking at how did you solve it, not all solutions are created equally. So now you start hearing words like your solution was inelegant, right? Which means it wasn't very elegant, right? That's something that I've heard, right? This wasn't an elegant solution. And when I was in high school, I never would have thought the word elegant would be connected to math and science, but that's what happens. So I never had a problem with the hardcore math, but then I had to learn about how to present my solution in a way that was more palatable to others. I had to learn how to, and the funny thing is, so I also, when I was young, I used to tinker with it. I used to take apart the toaster oven. I used to take apart things, tinker. And in graduate school, I actually had to learn, no, we don't tinker anymore. We have to come up with solutions that are based on mathematics, right? You have to prove that not only does your solution work for this system, but that this solution could work for other systems as well. And you can't do that by tinkering. And even as a professor now, so I have graduate students who, they're just little versions of me. They just want to tinker. And I have to say, and tinkering is fun, but you have to say, I recognize that you see a solution in front of you that you can get to quickly, but there's actually a better solution if we get the pencil and paper out and work through the equations.
Man.
Yeah. I love it, man. I love it. And eloquent. When you're talking about graduate school, man, it gave me a flashback of graduate school, man. My first semester in graduate school, I ended with a 1.9 GPA.
Oh,
yeah. So there was a lot of ineloquentness going on.
Right. Well, my first semester was difficult too. So when I was in college, this is sad to say. When I was in college, I treated each course like a competition. I was in competition with the professor, and my goal was to get the best grade with the least amount of work. So I actually left college not knowing a whole lot. And I remember in engineering, we have these technical interviews, right? So, interviews can be very, what's your biggest weakness and what's your, how you work with teams. But then there's a technical interview where they basically give you an exam.
Question. And
I had a technical interview and I bombed it. And the guy, he stopped me halfway through and said, let's go ahead and stop. And he said, I'm gonna give you some advice. He said, your GPA is probably better than all your friends, right? And I said, yeah, because I hung out with the people who were chilling the hardest. And he said, your competition is not them. He said, you're comparing yourself to them and you're happy. He said, but your competition is people around the world who are grinding every day. So he said, you need to step your game up. And this was the second semester of my senior year, so it's kind of too late. but it did sort of let me know where I was, right? Like it did sort of allow me to reframe where I was, and I have to work harder. So when I got to graduate school, that first semester, I knew I was behind, and I worked extra hard. But the funny thing is, it wasn't until about maybe the end of my first semester of graduate school where I realized that, I thought everyone else was doing well. I thought everyone else was killing it. I thought everyone else was well prepared. Then I realized, wait a minute, they don't know what they're doing either. Like they're struggling too. They're just good at hiding. See, I'm asking questions in class. I'm going to the teacher for office hours. I'm letting I don't know what's going on. And they're pretending to know. And it wasn't until I started studying with them that I said, oh, they don't know either.
You've been listening to the Success Journey Show. You can check us out on our social media on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Also on our website, thesuccessjourneyshow.com. Enjoy the rest of the show.
With all the research that you're doing, talk about your time. How much time do you have to dedicate to it in relation to everything else that you have going on in life, or, schedule, whatever it may be. Yep.
Well, the good thing about being a professor is that our schedule is not structured. Our time is not structured. So I'm only in class about 8 hours a week. And then outside of that, I'm preparing for class. I'm creating exams, I'm grading exams. And then the research, of course, I have a couple of research meetings per week. But so there's really about 12 hours a week where I'm scheduled to be somewhere. And the rest of that is I have to sort of bounce my own time. Now, it's good and bad because if you're not good at time management, you can struggle with that. Mm-hmm. But it's good for me because I like to, sometimes I work late. Sometimes I wake up early and get on my laptop for a couple hours in the morning. So I probably put in somewhere around 50, 55 hours a week. There are a range of professor jobs you can get. So, at the very top of the top, you have MIT, Georgia Tech, Stanford. Those guys are probably putting in 70, 75 hours a week working. That just wasn't, I had enough outside interest that I didn't want my job to be my entire life. So I have sort of settled into a university where the expectations for publishing, the expectations for getting grants, the expectations for teaching sits me right around 55 hours a week, something like that. So
gotcha.
That's what I put in.
Gotcha. No, that's good. That's good stuff. So in terms of, tell us a little bit about what you're seeing in terms of students coming in, just this mindset wise, where they are, not necessarily skill level, but more so their mindset and some challenges that you have in terms of in the classrooms.
Wow, man. The challenges, it's always about motivating students. Students, they want to be there, but they want to be there, but they don't want to be there. They want to be engineers and they want to solve interesting problems. But I think what the students that I see don't expect is the sheer amount of math. Because like I said, a lot of people go into engineering because they were good tinkerers, they were good builders, they could create things. And then when they sit in class, we say, hey, man, I'm going to give you 50 minutes of math 3 days a week. And that I think it can be, it's unexpected. And then when you do 2-3 years of that, then you start to say, wait a minute, is this for me? And then I spend a lot of time motivating students. So if I'm in class 50 minutes, I'm going to spend the first 5 minutes just motivating. Where are we at? What are we doing here? Why is this important? And then sometime in the middle where I can see the students kind of fading and I can see the glaze look in their eye, I'll kind of pause and be like, let's push through, let's work hard. Let's think about what goals we want. Because the students, they're involved in so many activities. They're involved in so many clubs. They're playing video games that they're coming to class tired. And I've got to teach them. And at the end of the day, their grades are still a reflection on me. And at the end of the day, they're the customer. So if I'm not, and as a professor, I'm an entertainer. Like I'm on stage when I'm teaching. So if they're not adequately entertained and if they're not adequately taught, they're going to go somewhere else. They're going to take their dollar somewhere else. So that's one of the challenges. The students are just so distracted and they got so much going on. A lot of students are working. Some are working full-time jobs. One student told me she said she's going to work 36 hours from the time she got out of class Friday to the time she got back in class on Monday morning. She's going to work 36 hours. So any type of homework assignment that I gave. So if she had an exam on Monday, she's destroyed.
Wow. Man, that's crazy.
That's crazy.
I wish some of my professors had that mindset that we were the students were the client. It definitely didn't feel that way.
It bites schools like Harvard because, see, at Harvard, there was something, I don't remember what exactly it was, but they were inflating grades. Because if you give a student at Harvard a C or a D and they're paying all this money, they're like, whoa. So there's a balancing act between being fair, and then still remembering that the student is the customer.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have been so technical. You're strong in math. You have your doctorate. Your kids, what kind of expectations do you place on your children?
Oh, that's such a tough question, because I do see a lot of kids, and I was in college with a lot of kids who their parents wanted them to be a doctor. And I could tell it wasn't in them. That wasn't their true passion. And some of them end up going to med school and then kind of not doing well in med school and then changing careers at that point because it wasn't in them. So I have a 15-year-old, I have a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old. My 15-year-old is a great artist. She did not get that from me. I don't know where she got it from. She plays the violin and she wants to do that. And my thing is, you know what? And in my mind, I don't see a lot of money in violin playing. Like, I think, at the top of the top, you world renowned, a lot of money. But if you're just some person playing the violin around town, I don't see a lot of money. But that's what her passion is. And I think my goal is to try to direct them to find their passion and then achieve some goals in that passion. So my 5-year-old is already very talented at math. We could see it a year ago. We could see she is going to be a whiz at math. My 7-year-old, she is a dancer. She can dance. She's very athletic. She's not as good at math. So although I'm still going to have the approach my parents took as, you need to be good at math because math can open doors for you, but I will not force them into that if it's not their passion.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. I like how you're looking at each of them and their different characteristics, their skills, just their natural abilities in that thought process of how do I nurture that versus discourage them, from going that path. And I was having a conversation, I believe, last week and just saying, hey, as parents, and not just parents, mentors, whatever it may be, our responsibility is to create those pathways so that they can have the best experience in those opportunities. So it may not be a huge moneymaker path, but like you said, at the top, there are people making money. So what do you do now in the position that you're in as a parent, as a mentor, to create those relationships so that they have an opportunity to sit at those tables or go to those, have access and exposure to where the money is in those careers where it's very difficult to make a living. So no, I love the way you put that, man. It's amazing.
Well, and one of the problems is that a lot of, especially people in the Black community, don't know about all the careers that are out there. So a lot of my friends, not to HBCU, a lot of my friends were getting pushed into being doctors and lawyers because their parents said, my child is smart. What are the careers I know? They know about doctors and lawyers.
Yeah, correct.
Right? But they didn't know that there's a lot of money to be made, there are a lot of smart people doing other things where you can make a lot of money. I had a student who, he said he was very good. He said he enjoyed sports. He said, I love playing sports. I love watching sports. And he said, I also love graphic design. And I said, look, man, you could be a scoreboard artist, right? And he had never even heard of that.
Yeah.
So that's an example of, because I asked him, I said, give me the two things you love doing most, right? That's where where it came out of, the basketball, sports, and the art. And I said, you could just combine those two things into a career, into being a scoreboard artist. And we started Googling it, started looking, okay, what type of degree should you have? You have a computer science degree. He was already working in computer science. So, but we don't always know what types of jobs are available to us and the pathways to get those jobs.
Yeah,
so a person like me who's been around a university setting, I talked to a professor who was a dental anthropologist. She learned about old civilizations by looking at the rate of tooth decay. So like I'm exposed to a lot of different, but a lot of my friends and peers aren't. Like a lot of black people in the black community aren't exposed to those careers, so they don't know what's available to them. So they call me and say, "Hey, my kid is smart. I wanted to be a doctor. What should they do?" And I said, "Well, hold on. Let's think about what other things your child is interested in, and I can tell you about 10 different careers you've never heard of that they might."
Yeah, that exposure is key. That exposure is key, very key, and exposing them in a way so that you tie their interests to a career path. And I love what you said about the student, being a scoreboard graphic designer, man.
Yeah, that's going to sustain them when the classes do get difficult. See, if you don't want to be a doctor, when you got to take organic chemistry and everyone's getting, you're going to be like, I don't know.
Yeah.
You're going to fight through it.
Yeah.
You fight through it.
Yeah,
so you got to connect with passion.
Absolutely. So one question that we typically like to ask our guests is, the journey that you've gone through, with just identifying the things that you were strong in, things that you were weak in, adjustments that you had to make, going from undergrad to graduate work, the adjustments that you got to make every day, especially in research, being in that environment every day. What are some things that, when you go back to these students and like you say, you're just exposure and allowing them to see the different things that are out there. But what specifically would you say to the younger you that just stepped on the undergraduate campus, just getting ready to embark on a journey that he had no clue where it's going to lead him?
I think that and something that you guys talk about success being the journey, right? One of the journeys I'm on that I wished I had started sooner was being able to sell. And whatever career you're in, whatever you're doing, at some point you're going to have to be able to sell, whether you're selling yourself, whether you're selling a product, whether you're selling a podcast, you have to be able to sell. And I always, very early on, I realized I'm not a good salesman, so I shied away from it. But now I have to sell my research. Remember I said, it's not just that you come up with the right answer, it's how good your answer is. So now I have to sell how good my answer is. When I write a proposal and I'm competing against other top-notch researchers in the world, I have to sell myself and I have to sell my solution. And that's something that I'm just now in the process of figuring out how to do. And I wish I had started that. I wish I had taken jobs when I was young where I was doing salesmanship, because I think it's the same. I think the concept is the same in whatever field you're in, just perseverance, just being willing to accept a no, being willing to listen to the customer and see what they want and adjust your sales pitch. I wish I had started that process a lot earlier.
Go ahead, Rick.
So what I got from that is you telling these people to go out and get a box of candy and learn how to sell off that box of candy for $1. Like,
learn how to sell it
from the young age, man. Get that box of candy and learn how to sell it, because as you get older, you're going to have to learn how to sell things at a much higher rate and higher importance. So you'll build up that skill set from young,
right?
Selling the M&Ms and the Skittles.
I love that show, Shark Tank.
Oh, I love it,
because they're on there selling. The people are on there selling, and all those people sitting in those chairs that make the decisions, they know about selling, and what they like is when they see a hungry salesperson, someone who knows how to sell. Even if the product is okay, if they come across a person who knows how to sell, they want to hire that person. And they'll have to sell something else. Like, your product is okay, but I'm gonna hire you and put you on something else.
Man, selling is good. And you met me when I was a recruiter, so I'm all about sales, because being a good salesman, it takes a lot. A lot of people think you just get there and just woo the crowd and wave a few magic wands and stuff like that, but it takes a lot.
No, I love it. Love it. Thank you so much, man, for answering that question. And that, not just that question, but just everything that you have shared today. And I know there's so much more that we could have broke down and dialogued about. And but we really appreciate just your thoughts and just hearing your journey to date. You know, we know there's so much more that you have in store for yourself, and that is going to be in store for you in your life. So, you know, we wish you the best on your journey. You know, I would say, you know, I'm one of those guys that even though I love engineering, after watching that iRobot movie, I'm a little on edge. when I see my wife asked me to get her one of those robot vacuum cleaners, and I'm just like, oh man, there we go. There's the beginning of it.
Right. Be very free. Be very free.
You know, so on one hand, I'm helping push the technology, on the other hand, I'm afraid of it. But it's, hey, you know what?
Right.
It's the way that, you know, life is evolving too, and it is going to be the way of the future. I don't know exactly when to pinpoint that future, but I know it definitely will be that case. So for those sort of listeners that are listening, how can they contact you? If they have any questions or just want to follow you or whatever it may be?
So I've actually started a Instagram page called Luther. It's called The Blacker the Science, actually. So it's like at The Blacker the Science, and they can contact me through there. They can follow that. I'm trying to sort of bring scientific inquiry and scientific thought into the Black community.
Okay, love it.
And just kind of help us. How do we use these tools from the scientific laboratory? How do we use these tools in our everyday life to figure out what kind of vitamins to take, to figure out what kind of food we should eat, to figure out who we should vote for, right? Like figure out, does global warming impact me or not,
okay.
Right? So tools that we've kind of sharpened. And when I say we, I'm talking about scientists and engineers, we've sharpened that the Black community still is still behind on. We don't have a lot of scientists and engineers yet. So how can I bring some of these ideas to our people?
Yeah.
So they can use them in everyday life. So that's a good way to connect with me. Also, I use my personal email is lrpalmer3@gmail.com. Hit me up.
Perfect. Well, hey, you guys, you heard it, man. We appreciate Dr. Palmer for coming on and just sharing his story, sharing his journey. You've heard ways you can contact him. Matter of fact, his information is in the description of this podcast. And also remember, if you enjoy this podcast, leave a review on iTunes or whatever platform you listen to it on, and also share it with a friend. Those friends that you know that come to you that, you know, they ask you, hey, I want to be an engineer when I get older, and you know nothing about engineering. Pass them along this episode, get them in contact with Dr. Palmer or any other engineer that we've had on this show, and let's lead them in the right direction. Let's give them the exposure that they need. Let's eliminate the fear factor of the mathematics and the science. And that only can happen by them being exposed to people that have done it and that are doing it in that space. But we've come to the end of another episode, and we just want to thank you again for tuning in and listening. And we will be with you next week at the same time, the same place on the Success Journey Show. Thank you, everyone. Have a good one.
One love.
You've been listening to the Success Journey Show, where your dreams, drive, determination, and diligence are the foundation to success. For more information, check out thesuccessjourneyshow.com. The Journey Squad is here helping you to your destination.